I was sick, really sick, and I didn't know why. My back hurt. At times it felt like I was passing a kidney stone. My heart pounded. I couldn't take a full breath. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had hot flashes and chills. I was always tired. I had terrible muscle spasms. I was suicidally depressed. My only solace came from the belief that I could control when I would die. My brain was so foggy I couldn't even do calculus. What good is a math teacher who stares blankly at the board in the middle of class and can't even figure out how to do the problem he just wrote up? This went on for several years. I blamed my ever-increasing weight. I blamed the devastating roller coaster of coming off antidepressants. I blamed my job. But cancer never crossed my mind. Toward the end of the school year in 2018, I was at my worst. Pete, a good friend whom I lovingly call the wiry little hippie dude, had been doing some therapeutic massage with me one evening. I said, "Look at my abdomen. It seems asymmetric. Do you think there's a tumor there?" He felt around and said, "If there is something, it's toward the back, around the liver." There's a very spiritual connection with Pete. He just knows things. The barriers of place and time seem very permeable with him, and he draws knowledge and energy from connections I can't explain. I just accept them because I know they heal me. I made an appointment with the doctor. Before the doctor's appointment, I went on vacation to my favorite guest house out by the ocean. It's a grounding and healing place that I like to go when school lets out. It's still early season, and I can take the time to decompress without the crowds. I could barely walk across the sand, but I loved being there. When I first saw Michael, he was being aggressively hit on and harassed by a very drunk man. I can name many times in my life I've been a bystander. Too many. But that night I was the protector, the upstander. I felt compelled to do it. I stepped in and thwarted the other man's every move. Eventually he gave up and left. Michael and I found a quiet place to talk. He put his hands on my back, and I could feel a warmth and energy flowing through me like I had never felt before. Somehow Michael knew where my body was hurting, and in that moment, the pain went away. Not just the pain, but every symptom, every single symptom, permanently. That was the beginning of my healing journey. It was like I'd been reborn. I had energy. I had no pain. I started losing weight. I actually lost 20 pounds on that trip. I was happy. I asked Pete about it, and he said, "Now you understand." I could envision his enigmatic smile when he wrote it. The vacation ended, and I went to the doctor's appointment feeling wonderful. The doctor told me that I looked better than he had seen me in years. I told him what had been going on and what Pete had said. I'm grateful that the doctor listened. So many would dismiss him for just being a masseur. The doctor ordered a CT scan. 2 days later, I got the phone call. I was visiting my mom at the time. There was a fist-sized tumor and multiple lesions in my liver, as well as a thumb-sized tumor in the mesentery, where the main blood vessels for the small intestine come together. Lymph nodes were on DEFCON orange. I got off the phone, went downstairs to take a shower, gathered my thoughts, and then came back up to break the news to Mom. We went in for the biopsy the next day. I refused any sedatives other than a small amount of Novocaine at the biopsy site. I always overreact to sedatives, and opioids only make me aggressive and intensify the pain. After the biopsy, they put me in a room with Mom. We were chatting, and my mom, being ever vigilant, was watching the monitors. My blood pressure plummeted to 40/20, and my pulse tanked. Mom got the nurse, who couldn't understand. It was a routine procedure, and I was alert and talking. She smacked the monitor, as one does with recalcitrant electronics, and left. Nothing changed, and my mom, upset, called her back. Then she really saw the monitors. Then the crash cart showed up. Now I know it was carcinoid syndrome. At the time, I blamed the local anesthesia. Thankfully, everything went back to normal and I was able to go home. I took an aspirin and a Benadryl for the discomfort from the biopsy. I didn't know it then, but those would be the last pharmaceuticals I would take. Ever. The diagnosis came: neuroendocrine cancer. Officially, multifocal, well-differentiated neuroendocrine carcinoma involving the liver. Do you know what a relief it was to finally have a name for it? If I know what the problem is, I can find a solution. Next stop, oncologist. Did you ever notice how long it can take to get in to see any other doctor? But you can always get an oncologist appointment right away. The oncologist was a cadaverous little man who bore a strong resemblance to Renfield from the original Dracula. At any moment, I halfway expected him to leap out of his chair and pounce on a cockroach. You have that same cancer that killed Steve Jobs. I don't know what made him think that that was a helpful way to start a conversation, but every oncologist I've ever seen has used that as their opening line. I need to be very clear here. I fully intended to pursue a conventional course of treatment: surgery, chemo, radiation. I wasn't happy about it, but you do what you need to do. The conversation went on. Well, the tumor is too integrated into your liver. We can't remove the tumor. We can't remove the primary tumor in your mesentery either, because it would damage the blood vessels that it's embedded into, and you could lose your entire small intestine. And chemo doesn't do too much because it's a slow-growing tumor. Oh, and it's too widespread for radiation. Okay, I'm happy about that? Actually, I was very happy. Very, very happy. A 6-year-old on Christmas morning would have looked positively sullen compared to me. It turns out that's part of the game. Highly elevated serotonin levels. Of course, no one knew that at the time. I literally had the one cancer in the world that makes you happy to have it. Without knowing my serotonin levels, the oncologist recommended intravenous octreotide treatments. What do? They bring your serotonin down. That got my attention. After years of Zoloft and Wellbutrin, I was familiar with SSRIs. I knew the hell it was getting off of them and the long-lasting problems I had. Not so sure I wanted to take something that was going to mess with that again. Let me think about it. I'm asymptomatic and doing very well right now. You'll be back. It's going to do nothing but go downhill. I went to see the holistic therapist my mom sees. Since working with him, her multiple sclerosis hasn't progressed. In fact, the damage appears to be slowly starting to reverse itself. The MRIs show that, and her neurologist is stunned. At this point, she's off all her steroid infusions and takes 1 or 2 Depakote or baclofen a week instead of several a day. If anyone can do something, I believe he can. I sat in his office holding a brass rod as he poked a probe into the acupuncture points on my hands. I was nervous, but laughing. He has a kind heart, even if his worldview sometimes challenges mine. I've seen him help too many people for there to not be something to it. You do have cancer. I can do something for that. I can do something for that. Yes! I left with the celandine tincture. Celandine, as I was researching, is a liver toxin. The theory is that it tricks the liver into sending out a distress signal to the immune system. The good guys show up, look around for a problem, see the cancer, and get to work. That was when I stopped thinking of cancer as some kind of alien invader that was trying to take over my body. It's not. It's my own defective cells that my body has overlooked. It was a part of me, and I needed to honor that. My body allowed this to be created, and it has a role to play in making it go away. It's a dance, not a war. I sat in the waiting room of the specialist the oncologist set me up with. Did they run out of room in the morgue? That was the first thought that came to my mind. Why are all these dead bodies sitting in chairs? Oh, God. They're all cancer patients. We're all cancer patients. In that moment, I said, this is not me. I am not people like me. I am me. Many doctors have heard me say that. Anyone who is experiencing cancer is a case study of one. I sat down with the specialist. You have the same cancer that killed Steve Jobs. His voice was annoyingly cheerful. This cancer has a 5-year survival rate of 84% and a 10-year survival rate of 61%, so you're lucky. Lucky. Is that a picture of your daughter? Yeah. She looks to be about 10. How fast has that time gone for you? And he kind of looked back at me. 10 years is nothing. What are the survival rates for 20 years? 50 years? Because I'm not settling for anything less than 50. A little while later, why are you so happy? Because I'm not Steve Jobs. You have no symptoms. How did you know? This was another common thread. I told them about Pete and how we both just knew. It was out of their realm of comprehension. So it was as if I hadn't said it at all. The specialist recommended a hepatic artery embolization because that's what you do with people like me. I had my third CT scan in a month because no one seemed to be able to use a scan someone else had ordered. The nurse practitioner asked the requisite questions. She said they would shave my groin. That seemed very important to her. I was more interested in the fact that they were going to shove a tube up a vessel in my leg and squirt silly string into the main artery for my liver. Don't I need that for my liver? No, she said. She drew a line on a coloring book page of the human organs to show me where the catheter would go. I asked exactly where the tumors were. She didn't know. She left and came back with another coloring book page with a couple of ballpoint scribbles on it. That actually was helpful. She said it would be painful, but it would cut off the blood flow to the tumor and kill it. I told her about my sensitivities to opioids. She said they could have someone do acupuncture instead. I told her about the reaction I'd had after the biopsy. She dismissed it without writing it down. Things wrapped up, and I got up to leave. On my way out the door, we have you scheduled for surgery on Friday. What? Wait. Don't I get to think about this and get back to you? And I can't do Friday. Dead silence. And I used to people telling them, no. Monday? My new gazebo down by the river was delivered on Friday, and I spent the weekend hauling 2 tons of flagstone around to finish off the pad around it. Have you ever tried to reschedule a gazebo delivery? They're booked a month out, unlike oncologists. Monday came. Then my housemate dropped my mom and I off at the surgery center. I was in pre-op with IVs in my arms when the surgeon came in to talk. He explained the procedure. He told me they'd put me on a morphine drip. You can't do that. But the pain will be excruciating. They said they could do acupuncture to help. The nurse practitioner shook her head like I was crazy. He told me that the surgery would shrink the tumor. Not make it go away, I asked. No, just shrink it. And then it was likely that the tumor would regenerate a new blood supply, angiogenesis, and keep growing. They could do the procedure again, but it wouldn't be as effective. If it doesn't make the tumor go away, why are we doing this? It's palliative. It makes your pain go away. What's your pain like right now? Well, I'm a little stiff from hauling around flagstone all weekend, but other than that, I'm fine. We only do this procedure because of the discomfort. He went on to talk about the risks, specifically carcinoid crisis. My mom jumped in and said, that's exactly what happened when they did the biopsy. The surgeon looked over at the nurse practitioner, who was looking some combination of pissed and ashen at that point. He turned back to me and apologized. I'm so sorry for this inconvenience, but we shouldn't be doing this procedure. The risks are too high, and you're not experiencing any of the symptoms we do this procedure for. He looked at the nurse practitioner again. Didn't anyone ask this man if he was having any pain? She looked away. He told her to pull the IVs out, looked over at me and said, put your clothes back on and go home. He was the only one who ever asked me if I was in any pain. And that one question probably saved my life. Mom and I walked out. Were stopped by the nurse at the desk. Were we sneaking up? We told her that the surgeon decided the procedure wasn't necessary and we were going home. That never happens. You could tell from the look in her eyes that she had just a tiny bit of cheer in her heart. Mom told me she was so relieved that I wasn't going through with the procedure. She knew I would die on the table if I did. I stopped in my tracks and stared at her. Why didn't you say something to me? I didn't want you to go into the procedure with negative thoughts. I shouldn't have gone into it at all. Well, you didn't, so it's all okay. I will never, ever understand that mom logic, but I'll always know she has my back. We went out to lunch. Gluten-free pizza with goat cheese at Pizza Luce. The waitress brought us a gluten-free, dairy-free brownie to celebrate when she heard our story. Then came the letter. Our board has reviewed your case. We've rescheduled you for the hepatic artery embolization. I said, no. Now this is where the story really begins. It's a beautiful story where the heroes aren't knights in shining armor, but outsiders and outcasts who all have humble yet powerful gifts to bring.